What's up? My name is Signal. You've read the title. You know what a sample is. So let's just jump into the deep end. When you create any kind of electronic music, I'm going to throw hip hop in there too. It's important not to allow yourself to be insecure over using samples. All it takes is some basic integrity. So, how can we use samples with integrity? One, most simply, break it down. Samples have pitch, samples have rhythm, samples have a waveform. You can isolate any one of those things and kind of like work with it in whatever way you want to. If a sample is playing 16th notes, you can make them quarter notes and it will sound different. You could pitch it up, you could filter it, so on and so forth. The most basic idea of sampling, the musical aspect. If you can't do any of that, that's a problem. You'll be really good at picking samples if you know how genres relate to each other. For instance, you could go to a jazzy hip hop sample pack, or you could go to a jazz sample pack and then make it hip hop. One of those is lazy, the other one is just hip hop. And as for the question of is sampling another person's work stealing, if you think so, I don't think you understand how music works. If a lot of what we do is rooted in hip hop, a lot of that is rooted in things like funk and jazz and soul, and a lot of that is rooted in basic folk principles. Now, folk principles can apply to any culture. Let's say there's a chord progression. It's just the 1-4-5 progression. 100 years ago, or even more, someone might have taken that 1-4-5 chord progression and played it in the same way every single time and just put different lyrics over it. And then someone might have heard that and also played it in the same way every single time and just put different lyrics over it. And that just kept happening. And when radio became a thing, people just kept playing the same songs over and over and over, except they did their own rendition of it. And as we've progressed through the modern age, we just kind of gotten more complex copyright territory that has helped shift the culture of music. But that concept of stealing is oppressive to music and musicians. So we leave it over there for the people who are too afraid to make music. The next two go hand in hand: band logic and you should know your strengths. If you're in a room with 4 instruments, you could probably compose for every instrument, but that's really exhausting. So maybe you could compose for 2 instruments in one day, but it'd be really easy if you had someone there to compose with you. So if you write a chord progression and you write a melody, just grabbing a sample and kind of exploring that idea isn't any different than having someone else there beside you to give you some ideas and you bounce ideas off of them. It's just a little more digitized. And that's when it's nice to know your strengths, because if you're good at one thing, you should put more energy into that when you're like actively trying to finish a song. Now, if you want to be good at something else, let's say you're really good at making melodies, but you want to improve your chord progressions, you should intentionally focus on adding that to your repertoire without freaking out that you can't do it. Like, samples are chill. The whole point is to use samples. But what I don't think the point is to, I have this example here. What I don't think the point is to go, why would you use this? Right? That, in my opinion, is bad sample sourcing because it already has all this vinyl on top of it. And if you want to make lo-fi, you should just grab a clean Rhodes piano and make it lo-fi. What are you going to do with this besides add reverb? Retune it? Like, I'd rather chop all this up, then send it through the vinyl, right? So that's just a bunch of my opinions, but it's nice to develop your own philosophies that will define your relation to music. let's get into some ideas. We can start with a simple one, layering. If you want a big, cinematic, high quality sound, but it still has a synthy element to it, layering samples is a really nice way to achieve that. So let's just make like a real basic. Okay, we've got a pad. Give it some LFO just a little bit. And let's just grab a string. See how I kind of made sure it still has a transient? I'll loop. You see? What's wrong with doing that? Let's add a synth. We could add some like phase modulation from the violin. Huh. Let's go up a fifth. I like that more. Then maybe you could put some pitch shift delay on there. A couple months ago, someone told me they don't get the point in chopping up a 2-bar loop, which still blows my mind. Let me just show you how I like to choose drum samples when I'm feeling really impatient. No, I don't like that chime. And I'm actually going to leave them raw. Sixteenth notes. I hope you guys don't mind that there wasn't much talking. I'm just simply putting together a drum kit, but as you can see, instead of going through individual one-shots, I'm using loops to pull from. It's a little too synthy. If you remember how I said it's good to know your genres so you can pick a sample, you will know reggae bass lines are at the heart of dubstep and drum and bass. And I say drum and bass because of jungle music. We'll find a sample. It seems a little busy, but we'll use it. Now, this is easier if you are in Ableton, but we can do it in any DAW. All right, so we're going to make a real simple wobble. See how I'm just lining it up? I need more high end. This just needs processed better. But you get the point. I'm using the reggae bass line to make a dubstep bass. You can see here how it kind of plays around on this 2 and this 4 because it's on the backbeat. That's the reggae aspect. Lastly, my favorite is glitch processing. Essentially, we just take anything. I mean, literally anything. I'm going to grab a snare. I don't even care what it sounds like. I'll solo this out. Now let's look at the waveform. Look at all that. That's texture. Let's pull it out. So let's stretch it more. But then might shorten it here and here. And here. Yeah. Let's add a low mid pitch shifter, but add an LFO because that's weird. Oops. So just spend some time thinking about music and get experimental. Maybe you could take a guitar sample, tune it down, put it in a sampler, and turn it into a synth bass. Maybe you could take a drone sample, put a transgate on top of it, and a high resonant bandpass filter. Maybe you could take a chord progression of 4 chords without any reverb that kind of like overlaps the attack from the release of the previous chord. Now you can make a whole new chord progression. You could put it in a new key just by chopping it, and you won't even have to retune it, you just chop it. I think this is like the most basic workflow that we can use in our DAW. Hey guys, before I end the video, I just want to say that at the time of recording this, I'm at 150 subscribers, so you should definitely hit that subscribe button. And if you're interested in supporting me further, I am actively publishing this Patreon page. I will be constantly updating this with samples, presets, wavetables. I have more ready to go. For instance, I have an OBXD preset pack. You just need a commercial license for that, even though it's a free synth. I found that out after I made it. It only costs $3 a month. You can also get some one-on-one project help from me for just $10 a month. But if you don't want any of that, that's okay. You can go to producerpresets.com, get some of my free presets, or you could just like this video and hit that subscribe button.